Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 7th of August. I'm Erin Viner. This is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. 2 soldiers remain in serious condition after they and another soldier were injured in an attack near the Shiloh Junction in the West Bank yesterday when a Palestinian terrorist rammed his car into them as they were on a patrol along Route 60. One of the troops, Lieutenant Daniel Elbaz, managed to fire at the driver, injuring him and causing his car to overturn. The terrorist has been identified as Mohammed Badwan of the West Bank village of Bidu. After security forces confirmed that no explosives were in his vehicle, he was removed and evacuated by ambulance for medical care at the Shaare Zedek Hospital in Jerusalem. The soldier's quick response was praised by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Reuven Rivlin, and members of Knesset spanning the political spectrum, commending the prompt reaction as the right way to act against terror. Yesh Atid leader Yair Lapid today lashed out at Prime Minister Netanyahu, accusing him of exploiting the Shiloh attack to further deepen the rift between the nation's citizens. Speaking at an event at the Ashkelon Academic College, Lapid slammed the premier for questioning why those who condemn Jewish terrorism against Arabs fail to do the same when Palestinians attack Jews, saying that the remarks only create deeper divisions rather than creating greater unity. When addressing the world power's nuclear agreement with Iran, Lapid said that Netanyahu has only further isolated Israel in the international arena by creating discord in the bilateral relationship with Washington over the issue. A short time ago, 3 Qassam rockets were fired by Palestinians in Gaza at southern communities in Israel. One landed in the Eshkol Regional Council in an open area of the western Negev, causing no injuries or damage. Today's strikes follow 3 additional attempted attacks yesterday, but those missiles misfired and instead landed inside of the Hamas-run enclave. Turning now to Washington, where the most influential Jewish member of Congress has announced his opposition to the Iranian nuclear deal that is being aggressively pushed by the Obama administration. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York is the 3rd highest-ranking member of the House. He said that he is against the deal because he doesn't trust that Tehran will change its behavior and that the agreement doesn't sufficiently ensure that the rogue state will comply with its terms. Schumer issued a statement saying that he reached the decision after serious consideration. He downplayed how much influence that he might be able to yield, even though his vote is considered to be key. While he said that he would certainly share his view in attempts to persuade his colleagues against the deal, that his experience with matters of conscience on issues with such great consequences as this has shown him that the members will ultimately come to their own conclusions. And meanwhile, the most senior Democrat in the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, Eliot Engel, has also announced his own opposition to the nuclear deal. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said today that he profoundly disagrees with the reasoning behind Schumer and Engel's decisions. While speaking during an official visit to Hanoi, Kerry said that the facts do not bear out the arguments made by the 2 Democrats. Even though he said that he respects the rights of lawmakers to make their own decisions about the merits of the deal, Kerry added that their rejection serves no purpose other than paving a path to conflict. According to the top American diplomat, if Congress fails to approve the pact, there will be escalated demands for military action if the United States is forced to abandon the diplomatic solution. The first televised U.S. presidential debates were held in Cleveland last night, hosted by Fox News, Facebook, and the Ohio Republican Party. A total of 17 GOP candidates presented their platforms at 2 separate events, with the 10 leading contenders participating in a primetime debate following an earlier face-off between the 7 who came in lowest in public opinion polls. While domestic and economic issues took center stage, foreign policy and specifically the Iranian nuclear deal were raised for discussion at both. Here's what several of the candidates had to say.
Well, I want to ask a few of you this. First, Governor Walker, you've said that you would tear up the Iran deal on day 1. If this deal is undone, what then?
Well, first off, let's remember, I still remember as a kid tying a yellow ribbon around the tree in front of my house during the 444 days that Iran held 52 Americans hostage. Iran is not a place we should be doing business with. To me, you terminate the deal on day 1. You reinstate the sanctions authorized by Congress. You go to Congress and put in place even more crippling sanctions in place, and then you convince our allies to do the same. This is not just bad with Iran. This is bad with ISIS. It is tied together, and once and for all, we need a leader who's going to stand up and do something about it. It's yet another example of the failed foreign policy of the Obama-Clinton doctrine.
Senator Paul, would you tear up the deal on day 1? I oppose the Iranian deal and will vote against it. I don't think that the president negotiated from a position of strength, but I don't immediately discount negotiations. I'm a Reagan conservative. Reagan did negotiate with the Soviets, but you have to negotiate from a position of strength, and I think President Obama gave away too much too early. If there's going to be a negotiation, you're going to have to believe somehow that the Iranians are going to comply. And I asked this question to John Kerry. I said, do you believe they're trustworthy? And he said, no. And I said, well, how are we going to get them to comply? I would have never released the sanctions before there was consistent evidence of compliance. Governor Huckabee, what do you think about what Senator Paul just said?
Ronald Reagan said trust but verify. President Obama is trust but vilify. He trusts our enemies and vilifies everyone who disagrees with him. And the reason we disagree with him has nothing to do with party. It has to do with the incredibly dangerous place that this world is going to be as a result of a deal in which we got nothing. We didn't even get 4 hostages out. We got nothing. And Iran gets everything they want. We said we would have anywhere, anytime negotiations and inspections. We gave that up. We said that we would make sure that they didn't have any nuclear capacity. We gave that up. The president can't tell us what we got. I'll tell you what the world got. The world has a burgeoning nuclear power that didn't, as the Soviets, say we might defend ourselves in a war. What the Iranians have said is, we will wipe Israel off the face of the map, and we will bring death to America. When someone points a gun at your head and loads it, by God, you ought to take them seriously, and we need to take that seriously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We have a president who doesn't have a clue. I would say he's incompetent, but I don't want to do that because that's not nice. But if you look at the deals we make, whether it's the nuclear deal with 24-hour periods, and by the way, before you get to the 24 hours, you have to go through a system. You look at Sergeant Bergdahl. We get Bergdahl, a traitor, and they get 5 of the big, great killers, leaders that they want. We have people in Washington that don't know what they're doing. Now, I agree. Now, with Iran, we're making a deal. You would say, we want him. We want him. We want our prisoners. We want all these things. We don't get anything. We're giving them $150 billion plus. They are going to be, I'll tell you what, if Iran was a stock, you folks should go out and buy it right now because you'll quadruple. What's happened in Iran is a disgrace. And it's going to lead to destruction in large portions of the world.
Sometimes it's a complicated situation, but some things are black and white. On day 1 in the Oval Office, I would make 2 phone calls. The first one would be to my good friend Bibi Netanyahu to reassure him we will stand with the state of Israel. The second will be to the supreme leader of Iran. He might not take my phone call, but he would get the message, and the message is this. Until you open every nuclear and every military facility to full, open, anytime, anywhere, for real, inspections, we are going to make it as difficult as possible for you to move money around the global financial system. I hope Congress says no to this deal, but realistically, even if they do, the money is flowing. China and Russia have never been on our side of the table. The Europeans have moved on. We have to stop the money flow. And by the way, as important as those 2 phone calls are, they are also very important because they say this: America is back in the leadership business. And when America does not lead, the world is a dangerous and a tragic place. This is a bad deal. Obama broke every rule of negotiation. Yes, our allies are not perfect, but Iran is at the heart of most of the evil that is going on in the Middle East through their proxies.
Very, very briefly, would you help our allies in that region to get nuclear weapons if Iran has them?
Let me tell you what I would do immediately. Day 2 in the Oval Office, I would hold a Camp David summit with our Arab allies, not to talk them into this lousy deal with Iran, but to say to them, what is it that you need to defeat ISIL? You know, Obama has presented the American people with a false choice every time. It's what I've done or not done, or it's war. It is a false choice. King Abdullah of Jordan, a man I've known for a long time, has been asking for bombs and materiel. We have not provided them. He has gone to China. The Kurds have been asking us to arm them for 3 years. We haven't done so. The Egyptians have asked us to share intelligence. We're not doing it. We have Arab allies. They are not perfect. I know everyone. But they need to see leadership, support, and resolve from the United States of America, and we can help them defeat ISIS.
In related news, Iran might be cleaning up its military site at Parchin, where many nations suspect research and development has been conducted in a possible atomic weapons program. According to the U.S.-based Institute for Science and International Security, satellite images show vehicles and container-like objects being moved at Parchin. Tehran is denying the allegations and instead claims that the activity is part of roadworks in the area. If true, the development would complicate the work of the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency, which is tasked with evaluating whether past nuclear activity in the Islamic Republic has had any military dimensions. The U.S. State Department is, for the time being, taking a cautious approach to those reports.
This isn't something you can't cover up past nuclear activity very easily. It lasts for decades, even longer. And so, this isn't something, I think, as the Secretary said, you can simply flush down the toilet. There are traces that remain, and we're confident in our ability to be able to fully investigate and to find out if the evidence does remain of these previous activities. We in the international community have been very clear about our concerns about Iran's past activities, and this includes its efforts to clean up suspect sites. So while cleanup activities, and again, I'm not confirming this, would always be a cause for concern, particularly at this site where IAEA has already requested access, but we're confident in our knowledge of what has actually occurred at Parchin.
In other regional news, the Islamic State has reportedly abducted 230 people in Syria, including at least 60 Christians, after seizing the strategically located town of Al-Qaryatain in the central province of Homs this week. According to the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, ISIS suspected the captives of having collaborated with the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. Those murdered by the extremist jihadis over the past year of their advance through the region include members of religious minorities that they consider to be infidels, such as Christians, Shiites, and even other Sunni Muslims who refuse to swear allegiance to their self-declared Islamic Caliphate. An explosion in Gaza killed 4 Palestinians and wounded 30 others along the Egyptian border in Rafah. The fatalities included the son and 3 other relatives of Hamas member Ayman Abu Nakera, who was wounded when the blast totally destroyed his home. Hamas-linked media outlets are blaming the detonation on an unexploded IDF missile from last year's conflict with Israel. Because of the large number of casualties, several of the wounded who came to Rafah's main hospital for treatment had to be sent to different medical facilities in the border town. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees has suspended financial aid to tens of thousands of Gaza residents due to a lack of funding. UNRWA has only received $135 million out of the $720 million that was pledged by donors for its cash assistance program to 96,000 refugee families whose homes were damaged or destroyed in the 2014 summer conflict. The money is also needed to support the 250 schools in the Strip that are sponsored by the organization. It's estimated that at least 1.2 million Gaza residents are completely dependent on United Nations assistance. Officials say that some 500,000 students may not be able to start their academic year on time because of the crisis, which will also affect the West Bank, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan.
Donors are continuing to support UNRWA. Donors have never provided as much funding as they are right now to UNRWA. It's just not keeping up with the needs. The conflict last year in Gaza, the ongoing conflict in Syria, the pressure of the occupation and the blockade adds more and more stress to the refugee populations. The ability of host governments to cope isn't as strong as it could be. This is the message that we give to the capitals around the world. It is their responsibility to fund this organization, and they will bear the consequences. We must do everything we can to get the schools open and to provide the children of Palestine the hope and the education that they deserve.
Turning now to Argentina, where more than 21 years after a bomb ripped through the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, the trial is open for ex-President Carlos Menem, a former top judge, and several other officials on charges that they derailed investigation into what was the nation's worst terrorist attack. Several of the 13 men allegedly involved in the cover-up were ushered into court for the judge's listing of the offenses facing them. Menem led the country from 1989 to 99, but failed to attend the hearing because of health problems, according to his attorneys. Prosecutors are accusing Iranian and Hezbollah authorities of being behind the 1994 explosion of the Argentine-Israelite Mutual Association, which killed 85 people and injured hundreds more. Because no one has ever been detained or convicted in the attack, many Argentinians have come to believe it symbolizes an inept and corrupt justice system which operates at the whims of politicians who can be bought off. The proceedings are expected to go on for months and are also expected to focus on how and why Menem and the others may have been motivated to bury the investigation. And now, taking a look at the new Suez Canal. And in a defining moment of his presidency, Egypt's Abdel Fattah al-Sisi presided over the unveiling of the major extension of the existing waterway. The former military leader hailed the feat as historic and necessary to revive the ailing economy in his country after years of unrest and violence that date back to 2011. Even though he appeared to be upbeat and clearly relishing the pomp-filled occasion, Sisi nevertheless conceded that the $8.5 billion project will not be able to spark a swift financial windfall, but he called it the first of the 1,000-step journey that Egyptians must take toward economic recovery. The magnitude of the project, its on-time completion, and the impressive attendance of high-level international leaders at the unveiling are likely to bolster Sisi's already strong standing among many Egyptians just 13 months into his presidency, pushing aside, at least for a while, his reputation as an authoritarian leader with little regard for human rights or liberties. Playing into his hands is a clear shift by many Egyptians away from the need for democratic reforms and instead toward economic survival as the top priority. Staying in Egypt, where the Arab League has reaffirmed its commitment to Palestinian statehood during a meeting at its headquarters in Cairo. Secretary General Nabil al-Arabi cited the critical and dangerous situation in territories. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas told the delegates that it is now more important than ever to establish peace in the region. He then spoke out against last week's arson attack in Douma against the Dawabsha family and the continued building of settlements in the territories. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said that the Palestinians' cause will remain the most important issue for the Arab nations, but he went on to cast aspersion, apparently, on unilateral steps taken by the Palestinian Authority toward statehood. Here at home, actress Orna Parata was laid to rest a short time ago at the Moshav Hadid Cemetery after passing away at the age of 91 yesterday. Ahead of the funeral, the renowned performer's casket lay and stayed at the main plaza of Tel Aviv's Camry Theater for the public to pay their final respects. Parata starred in dozens of roles over the past 50 years and was mostly known for her founding in the early 1970s of the highly regarded Theater for Children and Youth in her name. Parata was born in Germany, where she studied acting. She moved to Israel in 1947 and converted to Judaism, going on to become one of the country's most respected actresses. She was awarded the prestigious Israel Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Theater in 1979, and she was also the proud recipient, the three-time laureate of the Honorable Kinor David Prize. And now for some good news for all of those whose electricity bills have been soaring dramatically because of the sizzling heat wave that we've been enduring. The Public Utility Authority has announced that as of next month, electricity rates are set to drop by an additional 7%. This latest reduction is the second major decrease in prices since the start of the year, meaning that by this September, consumers will be paying a total of 16% less, which officials say will amount to about a 300 shekel savings for the average family this year. Financial news. The shekel today ended the trading week with a mixed performance, and due to the closure of the stock market on Fridays, here's a look at the closing numbers for the week. The IBA weather team tells us that we can expect those Sharav Desert heat wave conditions to continue cooking us tomorrow. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel, when I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a cool evening and shalom from Jerusalem.